Hi everybody, this is Mike, also known as Gray 1951, and I'm here to do another video in the series of a movie for each year of my life, which I started a couple of years ago following some other people who came up with the idea. I didn't, and then I stopped doing it because I got busy. And anyway, I've decided I'd better get on with this because I have a very long life and I may not live long enough to finish this. So my life began in 1951 and I made it up to 1957. And now I have to start again with the year 1958. So when I was doing this before, I was talking about some of the films that were made in the 1950s that were for and about teenagers, that were big hits. It's as though the people who made films discovered that there was such a thing as a teenager, and they started talking about teenagers and their problems and how they related to adults. In 1955, for that year, I talked about classics like Rebel Without a Cause and Blackboard Jungle. In 1957, I talked about some of the horror films that were made on very low budgets at studios like American International Pictures. Films that reflected the angst of teenagers, and they combined that with classic horror monsters that they updated, right? I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and Blood of Dracula. And they were very low-budget exploitational films, definitely, but they were also very serious. And they tried to make a serious point along with the monster stuff. They tried to make a serious point about what's going on with teenagers and how they relate to adults. So as the decade progressed, I think these producers finally realized that anything to do with teenagers would make money. So some of the films started coming out in later years, late part of the 50s and certainly into the 60s. They were a lot less serious in tone. They were almost parodies of the early serious films like Blackboard Jungle and Rebel Without a Cause. Which brings us to this movie, High School Confidential, released by MGM, and it's in black and white, although for some reason they put it in CinemaScope. I have no idea why. But this is a great, fun movie that, in my opinion, is not meant to be taken seriously. It's supposed to be about the problem of drug use among high school kids, and it does have a few serious moments in it, but for the most part, it really is done for almost like a tongue-in-cheek entertainment value all the way, and it's great fun to watch. The movie stars Russ Tamblyn, who was an MGM contract player in the 1950s, started out as a child actor, started doing a variety of things, westerns, kids movies, and he also did some musicals. He was a very athletic dancer, and he starred in the classic film Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And he unfortunately came of age during the time when the Hollywood musical was going out of fashion, so he didn't actually do that many musicals. But a couple of years after this, in 1961, he would make West Side Story, for which he is always famous. Anyway, he plays a guy named Tony Baker who has been in high school for 7 years and is transferring into this high school in California to start again as a senior, I guess. And he is a bad kid. You know that from the very beginning. As soon as he opens his mouth, he's got all this this hipster beatnik talk, and he's insulting everybody, and he's lighting up cigarettes in the principal's office and insulting his teacher, played by Jan Sterling, who was one of the bad girls of film noir in the 1950s, and also did a variety of things. She was a little bit older now, and in this film she's playing a very good and kind-hearted, sympathetic teacher who tries to help her students, and she tries to help Tony as well. So anyway, Tony gets involved with this group of kids that they're supposedly the bad kids of the school, right? And they are also in charge of what's going on with the underground drug usage and selling. The name of this group is called, I kid you not, I would not make this up, the Wheelers and the Dealers, right? Headed by none other than John Drew Barrymore, who is, of course, Drew Barrymore's father and the son of legendary actor John Barrymore. And he's actually very good in this movie. For some strange reason, he has a Southern accent. He wasn't born in the South, but he sounds like Elvis Presley almost. Maybe that's why he's doing it. But so he gets involved with this group of kids. He tries to kind of take over and be a big wheel of the school, right? So when he goes home, he is living with his aunt and uncle, and his aunt is played by none other than Mamie Van Doren, the beautiful blonde bombshell of the 1950s low-budget films. And she is terrific in this film. And she must be an aunt by marriage, I'm not sure, but because she is trying to seduce her nephew. The husband's out of town, right? So she's crawling all over her nephew, and it's really kind of funny. But so anyway, the movie goes on, and it's just one kind of like overplayed scene after another. The idea that they're trying to put across in this movie is that well-scrubbed, well-to-do high school teenagers with beautiful clothes coming from affluent families all talk like beatniks, and they all smoke marijuana. And you can't tell the bad kids from the good kids because they all dress the same, they all pretty much talk the same, and they hang out in the same nightclub, which is sort of a cross between a malt shop type atmosphere and a beatnik coffee house, right? There's no liquor. Everybody's drinking coffee. They're all extremely well dressed. They all look like they're just about to go to the prom. There isn't a pair of blue jeans and a black leather jacket in the entire film. But somehow you're supposed to tell the good kids from the bad kids. I'm not really sure how. But anyway, the whole thing progresses where we discover that the adult who is turning all the kids on to smoking marijuana and eventually to using heroin, because of course marijuana definitely makes you move on to heroin. We all know that. This guy is played by none other than Jackie Coogan, the legendary child star who is now grown up and playing all these exploitation type roles in low budget films several years before he would go on TV and play Uncle Fester. And the beautiful young girl, teenage girl, part is played by an actress named Diane Jerkins, who really is very pretty and pretty good, but she didn't have much of a career. But in this, she is supposed to be addicted to marijuana and strung out because she can't afford to buy anymore. But she gets more beautiful with every scene. It's totally unbelievable. So the whole thing goes on, and of course we eventually learn that Tony is not who he appears to be, right? Something else is going on. And I'm not going to tell you what that is because I want you to see this movie. This is essential viewing, okay? Also in the film is, Michael Landon. He has a small part in it. This is a year after he played in I Was a Teenage Werewolf. He's all clean shaven and all grown up, and he is the head of the good kids, right? And the thing is, like I said before, they all hang out at the same places. They have they organize drag races where the good kids are racing against the bad kids, but they all seem to get along. It makes no sense at all. Also, it's really hard not to like a film that starts out with legendary rock and roll star Jerry Lee Lewis in the back of a pickup truck with a piano, right, and his entire band, and they're cruising past the high school, and he's singing the title tune to the film, High School, Boppin' at the High School Hop, or something like that. It's a great song, and all the very well-dressed and well-scrubbed kids are following along and listening to the rock and roll, which at that time was still pretty new. So it's just great fun. And it's especially fun seeing Mamie Van Doren. I mean, she was wonderful in everything she did back then. A beautiful woman with, she was a good actress, but she also had this attitude of, the whole thing, this whole thing is a crock, and we all know it, but let's just have a great time. And that's just kind of the attitude that she projected in almost every one of her performances. So the film was directed by a guy named Jack Arnold, who was an old friend to people like me, because he directed genre films like Creature from the Black Lagoon, It Came from Outer Space, The Incredible Shrinking Man, and Tarantula. And he went on in the 1960s to do a lot of television. He directed several episodes of things like Gilligan's Island and The Brady Bunch, and had a very long career. It's produced by a guy named Albert Zugsmith, who has a very interesting filmography. He produced a lot of low-budget films like this. He went on to do other things with some of the same people, certainly Mamie Van Doren, Jackie Coogan. Films like College Confidential, Sex Kittens Go to College, and something called Confessions of an Opium Eater in the 1960s. But he also produced films like The Incredible Shrinking Man and Written on the Wind, and also the Orson Welles classic film noir, Touch of Evil. He produced that film in the same year that he did High School Confidential. So it's a very interesting guy. I love this movie. I love movies like it. And all I can say is you got to see it, folks. So anyway, that is my re-entry into the Film for Each Year of My Life series. And I'll give you fair warning that I will be back with 1959. So, okay. Thanks for watching. Comments are welcome.